Hello, hello, hello. Today is not a combo guide, a tier list. Play this character, or me trying to taint your views on certain characters in Dragon Ball FighterZ. What we are doing is a series of case studies on all characters of Dragon Ball FighterZ, and today we're covering Vegito Blue. Now, at first glance, when you see Vegeta Blue, this is a character with so much movement, so much grace. Feels like he's hitting you forever. Sassy kicks. Crosses his arms while he kicks you. Probably one of the coolest characters in in Dragon Ball Z history, or Dragon Ball Z and Super history. So if you enjoy the ultimate fusion, akin to Gogeta, but with Vegito there's a bit more sass, then obviously he's for you. Let's pick him. Now, as always in these case studies, we like to talk about characters in zones. So you're gonna hear me talk about up close, mid-range and far, and we're going to obviously go over buttons on the floor, in the air, supers, specials, before we kind of delve into kind of win conditions the characters are looking for, and what is a kind of a semblance of a game plan, or what you're looking for in partners. But without further ado, let me put this first on Gardo. Let's begin. So Vegito's 5L, it's a rapid 5L, hits nearly at round start. This is -5, and so it's multiple hits, so it's really scary for kind of the opponents to press buttons here. It's 5LL, again is -5, so it feels like you're blocking forever when you're playing against Vegeta. So here he hits at mid-range as well. His 2M is a low. First one, there we go. His 2M is a low. You see they're being -10. So this is really good at kind of engaging. His 5M is also -5. So you're seeing the common theme here. Most of his buttons are -5, right? 5H hits near at round start. Up close is -9, but it's very fast. Deceptively fast. Good range. His 2H is 16 frames. Probably one of the slowest 6Hs in the game, but range is really, really good. Obviously he goes really, really high up in the air. That's what it is for Vegito. His 2L is an interesting move, again -5. This move here, not only does it go over low attacks, so if your opponent was pressing an L to kind of hit you here, to kind of counter poke here, or press, this will hit them, and it goes over throws too. So a cool thing about this is you can vanish, and your opponent can't reflect. So this is a good way for Vegeta to continue pressure. Sorry, my bad. So it's a really, really good way, a great way for Vegeta to continue pressure. So you can throw out that 2L at any moment. See, he can do it from an M, and still, obviously that's not a string. That's not a true string, obviously. However, he's able to go from mediums to his 2L, so it's really, you don't know when to press when you're playing against Vegeta. It's really, really confusing, or we don't know when to challenge, sorry. Now in the air, he has jump H. Really, really good move here. Jump H. This is great for cross-ups versus certain characters. And it hit cross up from a random range. JM as well, so his H is good for his entry. And JM is obviously very, very good for cross-ups. JL as well, versus some characters, is very helpful as well. Speaking of air normals, he does also have JS. So this is a really fast move, 15 frames. So this is good on mixing up in front versus your opponent. Because if your opponent tries to 2H, they're going to eat a big fat sword. So this is good to mix up obviously with cross-ups and with same side things. Now let's go delve straight into supers. Supers, Vegito's got a 1. Boo felt this one. Captain Sodo. You can do that, and then another level 1 in the air. This gives him a slide knockdown. Lockdown, sorry, not slide knockdown. Do the combo again. Let me show you what it looks like. So this knocks down the opponent. So regardless of if you've used your They'll smash or not. That's a really good move to end as well. And then he has his level 3 final Kamehameha. Probably one of the coolest cinematics that he has there. So those are his supers. So now let's delve straight into specials for Vegito Bleu. His 236L. Again, these sassy kicks. You see there, -4, -4, -4. So you see this character, he's living within the -4, -5 realm. 5S, again, -4. He can control it. So if you do S, it goes there. If you head forward, it goes there. So this is a good way to kind of end strings. Your opponent doesn't know when to press, because here you could do kicks. You could do this into 5H. So your opponent really has to kind of choose wisely when they want to kind of not disengage, sorry, when they want to engage with Vegito. So it's a whole big fat guess. He has his 2S. This is a really cool move so that Vegito can throw out. So if your opponent does jump into it, it hits from an angle there, and if they get hit, Vegito can continue the combo there. Vegito also has 2-on-4L, 2-on-4L, 2-on-4M, and 2-on-4H. So they all have their usage. So a lot of people might use them for strings, or primarily if your opponent is jumping, they cannot block. That's primarily end up for combos, so you can obviously super right after. So Vegito is very good at sniping someone who tried to jump away from his pressure, obviously because he's -4. Vegito can do something like this and really bait out his opponents. There's something your opponent has to be very wary of, especially he can throw this out and be relatively safe and then escape. That's his 2-1, that's his 2-1s and his 2-3-6. So 2-6 he can also do in the air. The sassy kicks he can do in the air. He also has 2-3-6-S. So this is primarily his kind of his zoning tool, or his tool to kind of control space. This is a very good, because it jumps in the air, so it will evade most S or people doing 5S on the ground. So this will evade for an easy confirm, or really if you combine it with assists, you can get easy confirms. With Vegito, so that's the kind of things that he's kind of looking out for there. His 2-1-4-S, Vegito. This, if your opponent decides to press, so your opponent decides to do barrier, put him on crouch. Actually, I'll record it instead. Take off jump. Vegito. So here, if your opponent decides to, if you decide to press, here it does this move like this, right? So that move is fully invincible. However, you can actually react if you do get hit. If you are fast enough, it is very easily reactable. You can do that. However, it is good to mix up versus your opponents once in a while. Or if your opponent's really savvy, if they're really savvy, they can throw at level 3. So you use that at your own peril, at your own risk, if you want to be using that move there. In the air, obviously sassy kicks is one of his best movement tools. So if we combine the sassiest kicks, he gets his dash after. So you can really set up really unique situations during movement with Vegito, where your opponent has to block. So you can go in front or behind. So you go high or low, sorry. So he still retains. So you can go high there and really mix up opponents and put them in a corner where they can't hold back versus Vegito's pressure. Now I can spend ages talking around his specials. This character has quite a few of them and their applications, but let's delve more into the win conditions, the game plans, and kind of what he's looking for in a partner. Now Vegito, as we saw, he is on the base as his win condition is you're blocking. As long as his opponent is blocking, Vegito is winning. We saw with a lot of his pressure is -4 or -5. So your opponent has to actually take a gambit if they want to either press versus Vegito, because at any moment he could just stop. Here, I'm stopping my pressure. And because of how fast his moves end into -5, you don't know if he's going into the next thing. So you can find yourself in situations where you're literally blocking the same thing over and over. And because of his advancing normals, like 2L, that literally jumps forward. Here, being -5, your opponent has no idea of when they're going to press. So as long as you're blocking and there's some variance in your strings between here, some type of variance, is that you always keep your opponent guessing. Now, for partners, let's look at what he's looking for in a partner. Now, two things to look for a Vegeta in a partner, as we saw there. From far screen, he has this 236S that is really helpful for him here. However, engaging from here to here, he only has 236H. He doesn't really have anything from far to mid screen that's really going to come close to the opponent. So he really needs entry. So he enjoys assists that allow him mid-range or far to mid-range entry, or stray hits as he moves around a lot. So what that looks like in practice, if I'm using someone like hit assist, because Vegeta is always moving around sporadically across the screen, you combine that with the fact that he's moving across the screen, you might get hit by something. And because he's so fast and his 5L goes forward, especially his 2L, combine that with obviously 236S, he really enjoys assists that allow him to get those conversions. So we see with hit obviously allows us to get the entry, the assist obviously having a bit of invol to it. So while you're moving around, hit's obviously an assist that would really be helpful to him. So your opponent not only has to change their block, so while he's moving around here, he's easy gets to confirm. With Frieza, probably can do the same thing with Frieza. It doesn't look like Frieza helps from up close, but from far away, Frieza, you can use obviously 236S with Frieza. And obviously you get a confirm with that. So these are the kind of assists that he really enjoys because he moves around a lot. Secondly, lockdown. Assists with block stun are really helpful for Vegito because he lives in block stun. So he enjoys you blocking so that he can cycle these options. You have to guess between, obviously this isn't a low, but it's not about opening you up. Vegito cares about. All Vegito really cares about is you blocking and taking a risk at one point. So here, your opponent's blocking. They're like, when is it my turn? So that's kind of Vegito's strength there. So assist that kind of give him that block stun to allow him to cycle through these options. I think I can show it. So we saw that with hits assist and Frieza, that these assists obviously both allow him to do that. So let's go on to their B assists, hit and Frieza. So hits assist, it's obviously a bit slow, so mid-range entry, probably not so much of hit, because if the opponent was jumping, it's a bit on the slow end, so it's not really helpful there. Stray hits as well. Let's see if hit helps with the stray hit. So if you do 236S, it doesn't look like it really helps there. If it was a random hit, it's a bit too hard to confirm something you've got to think about. Lockdown, let's not before lockdown, let's look at Frieza. Frieza's B assist. So it doesn't look like it's really helping there. Probably 5S, maybe. So 6S. So maybe not so much, it's not helping around when I'm moving around. But it helps in that area. If I'm moving around the screen doing all of this stuff. Doesn't look like it has enough hits done, so there's something you have to think about. And lockdown, let's see how they are on block. His is a +29, that's +11, so it doesn't really look like they're gonna help. But as long as you get to continue your pressure, So their Frieza probably not so much. Now if we go into C assists, now obviously from with the C assists here, random hits with C assists, because obviously it changes sides, so probably allows Vegito to do something like this. So your opponent really has to guess. So maybe you could use probably hit C assist. Frieza C assist is very fast. This is pretty good for Vegito from probably like this. Not from there, probably from this. It doesn't like it works. So probably not that one. See from here. Nah, it doesn't look like it helps there. So Frieza probably not. However, if you move around with Frieza, this will probably mix up your opponent because he's very fast. We saw there 25 frames, very fast. So while Vegeta is moving around the screen, let me do it again. Whoa, 26H. I don't know why it's not confirming, but alas. There we go. So yeah, maybe moving around. Block stun. Let's check out the block stun. So block stun obviously hits assist. A bit too slow. However, it's probably good for Vegito because his strings are actually long. Here your opponent, so you could use the C assist there because Vegito himself can keep his opponent blocking for a long time. Freeze assist is pretty fast, but only on plus 16, so that is something you have to think about. Now on the other side we have obviously Beerus, Lord Beerus, sorry. So with Vegito, if we're trying to use Beerus with Vegito, move around the screen. Beerus isn't really helping traversing there with straight hits, but it helps in that situation. So if you are above them in a scramble situation, Beerus is helpful there. So you can probably use Beerus for something like that. While you're moving around with Vegito, while you're doing all of this stuff. So you can probably use Beerus for stuff like this. Gogeta, obviously. It's funny how Gogeta and Vegito can work as a pair. This should work. Oh, it doesn't like it works. Ooh, probably a bit too far. Yeah, probably a bit too far for those two. However, it probably can do this kick. So while you're kind of moving around, Vegito can come and hit the opponent and really mix up the opponent by using your air options in the air. So we can probably use Vegeta. And as we said about strings, I think I have a recording here, I think. So we saw Vegito kind of uses the power of assist, so he uses tap DR and the strength of his 2-1-4 H. This is kind of where his usage is for. Your opponent thinks you're gonna grab. If your opponent is mashing, right here, if your opponent is mashing L, they get hit. So that's the kind of the strength of him using 2-1-4 L with Vegito. So your opponent has to change guard. So if you mix it up with stuff like 6M, simple options, 6M, 2-1-4H, or that's kind of what Vegito enjoys. So he enjoys using these type of assists when using against them. Now we can spend forever talking about win conditions, game plans, cool little tricks. But what about fighting against his character? It seems like offensively you have no chance. You're just blocking forever, right? Now let's just go back to it. Now Vegito actually full screen, unless he's preemptive, conventional 5S's is something he actually has to worry about. So if he's facing someone like, let's just get Lord Frieza, someone like Lord Frieza here. So he's facing someone like Lord Frieza here, and he's here on the ground. He's moving around, and he's doing all of this. These 5S's are much faster than obviously his 236S. So much faster than this. So it's something that Vegito has to actually think about. Yes, it will beat it then when he jumps, but he has to be very preemptive because he has to jump if he does it from the ground. If he's doing it in the air, sure, it's a nice move. It's very good when he's in the air. But if he's on the ground, you see that? You see that? If he's on the ground, this is what happens. So he has to be very careful with fighting these characters because some characters they'll stuff the 236S or jump 236S, and then he has to suffer through that. So that's something he has to actually worry about. And fighting against Gogeta, we talked about how it's amazing how he's got loads of things that are -5. So Vegeta is doing a lot of -5 pressure, this, but a lot of his strings, if you watch them, they push your opponent out. So his 2L pushes you out, his 5S pushes your opponent out, 2L pushes the opponent away. So backdash and up backers are very strong options versus Vegito, mainly because after his low option here, once he's introduced his low option, it's very easy to kind of escape his pressure if your opponent is using the correct defensive option. So if you're doing his backdash, that's forward dash. Do that at your own peril. See here, your opponent can actually backdash. If you're doing this kind of pressure, your opponent can backdash there. Even if you're gonna do 5H, your opponent can actually backdash there. After all of this pressure, so even if you're doing all this fancy pressure, if your opponent does a well-timed backdash in certain situations, once you introduce the low option, your opponent can choose to escape. So using the correct defensive option versus Vegito at certain points of your string, or not instead of mashing or using up back or jumping, are very strong versus Vegito. Obviously, we saw with up back what happens when your opponent starts up backing. We saw Vegito has obviously options for that. I'll have an up back. I'll put jump on actually. Jump is easier. We saw what happens when the opponent jumps. Vegito can start doing this. So that's why obviously backdash is a strong option. So Vegito does have an answer to people who are holding up or traditionally holding up after options like that, using obviously his L grab. So just something to think about. Now, before I spend 20 years on Vegito, let's go back to the character select screen. So we talked about Gogeta, win conditions wise, how even you just blocking for him, he gets to run his game. So a lot of his pressure being -4 and -5, and how fast his normals actually recover. We saw with Vegito, just his opponent actually blocking allows him to cycle through obviously his buttons and his options. So him going for his 5L, is he going to 5L into 2L? And being able to 2L after medium buttons are really helpful. So it really mixes up the opponent, thinking, okay, when is he going to stop the pressure? When is it going to continue? So him not using his low option is really powerful. So using 5L, 2L, 5S, or 5S, 2L. 5S, 5L, 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 5S, 5L, and he can really force the opponent to making bets or making choices to press buttons. So he's not really trying to mix you up as a character. What he's trying to do is overflood you with options and to force his opponents to do risky options. So we saw there partners he's looking for, because he's so powerful when he's inside. Partners he's actually looking for are people who help him mid-range entry. So we saw with hits, A assist was really great for him with stray hits and moving around. So because Vegito's continuously moving around using the 214L, 236H in the air just in case it hits the opponent. So he's using all these tools to traverse the screen. We saw with Gogeta how that was actually an unlikely pairing, but it actually helped out a lot because it also helped them with the lockdown. So assist with block stun so he can cycle through those options. We saw with him just using a simple freeway option of using 5L into DR or 5L into 214H or 5L into 6M. Each of them beat a specific option. So the 214H with Vegito there was going to beat someone mashing, and all the other options would beat someone blocking. So this is something your opponent really has to think about when they're facing Vegito. Are they going to challenge, or are they going to stand still and allow him to make you block forever? Facing Vegito, fighting against him, we talked about, unless it's preemptive, his 236 option in the air, jump 236S, and his on the ground 236S, conventional 5S is something he has to worry about. So if he's facing like base Gokus, the Trunkses, the Vegetas, the Teen Gohans, the Gotenkses, even base Vegeta, because of Big Bang Attack and all these characters, he really has to really think about his movement full screen. So I implore you, if you are fighting against him or using, do think about that option. The opponent does have 5S, so how do you traverse against that? And fighting against him, we did talk about his strings are fantastic, but they do push you out. There's not that many lows in his strings, so a lot of his strings actually push you out. So backdash is very powerful or a strong option versus Vegito if you're not cornered. If you are cornered, obviously it's a bit harder, and his whole game plan with assist is to put you in block stun, so he puts you in the corner so you lose that edge. However, Vegito mid-screen, because of the -4 or -5, backdash is very strong, and a lot of opponents do opt to up back. And as you saw there, he does have 2-on-4H, or he can throw out 2-on-4L in the pressure, but backdash is very, very strong, so that's something to think about when you are playing Vegito. But yeah, if you like the video, please leave a like, comment as well, if this is your type of character. If you're like, wow, Vegito, this guy is wrong, I'd love to hear it. Or if you really enjoyed it, please leave a like as well. But yeah, I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.